Hello everyone and welcome back to the Grandmaster Chess Speedrun. And in this episode we are playing a 1788. We are playing strong principled attacking chess. 2 pawns in the center, this time facing the French. We've been facing a lot of e5 recently and getting these gambit positions with very quick wins. But the French is no different and there's some nice gambits related to putting 2 pawns in the center all the same. Okay, this move c6 is not a theoretical move and there's a very good reason for that. Black needs to put their pawn on d5 immediately, otherwise we are going to put our pawn on d5 and not allow them to do so. And if the pawns take either way, then we can just recapture, leave the pawn here, and continue developing as though nothing happens, and black will be left with these two very difficult pawns to develop around, one of which will eventually pick up, and the other will be left behind as a weak and isolated pawn. So they take once, we take back, and they decided to play pawn to e5 here. So this is back to the live position. And on pawn to e5, I'm already thinking maybe d6 is possible, which is kind of interesting here. Because otherwise they're going to play d6, which seems quite helpful for them. So yeah, d6 is an interesting move. The only problem could be if the pawn comes under fire with something like queen b6 and we can't defend it. So yeah, maybe not pawn to d6 there. I actually think that just something like knight to c3 makes a lot of sense. c4 makes some sense, but let's go for knight c3, just simple developing moves now. If they go d6, which is really the most obvious move, their position doesn't look too bad. We've kind of got something like, I don't even know. It's like a cross between a Benoni and also a Sicilian. It actually doesn't seem too bad for black, but we're just going to keep developing our pieces, get the knights out quickly. They've not developed any of their stuff yet, so we should be doing fairly good. I'm going to continue with, I think, bishop to d3. You could give a check, but they're just blocked with the bishop. Although, then again, if I give this check and they block with the bishop, we can play something like queen e2 to protect the bishop with the queen and continue getting our development like this. So, yeah. When it's one piece at a time, you're developing every piece with one piece, one move, right? So every piece gets a chance to play, and your position can't go too wrong like that. So at the moment, black has a pretty tough decision because they don't have an easy way to develop their knight, and after they take here and the queen recaptures, we're going to immediately be pressuring the pawn. So we do have more time just to continue development. I think I'm going to continue with this move pawn to h3, however, because we want to put the bishop on e3, but then the move knight to g4 could be a little bit annoying as this bishop comes under fire. So I'm going to play h3 first, and then my bishop to e3. And on a6, I actually think I'm just going to retreat here, because their light square bishop isn't super impressive. Like I said, it's blocking the knight. When you have a space advantage, you want to ideally play with the space advantage. When you have a space advantage, you want to keep pieces on the board and let the side with a space deficit feel very, very cramped, because the more pieces they can trade off, the less obvious it is that their pieces won't be tripping over one another, right? So they're trying to lash out with b5. I think here just a3 makes a lot of sense. We want to keep the knight protecting the pawn. There's some alternative moves you could consider, like rook to d1, but after b4, and knight to e4, knight takes pawn. I don't really know why we're sacrificing that one. There is some stuff with knight d6 takes. You can take here, maybe some skewer, but that seems to be overcomplicating things a lot when you can just play a pawn up to a3. Okay, so now we need to continue the development with the bishop coming out. They're repositioning all of their pieces, which does make a lot of sense. And it might also be worthwhile considering whether or not we should put the bishop on g5. Because with the bishop on g5, if we can eliminate that, that means less pressure on this pawn. At the same time, I don't really want to give up the bishops for no reason. And bishop to e3 followed by rook to d1, it does seem like a perfectly sufficient way to maintain our pawn. So the knight wants to go to c5 here, and we can just bring a rook into the game, I think, and then if the knight goes to c5, we can consider taking it, playing d6, or just winning the free pawn. So the knight can't quite go to c5, we don't have to worry about that yet. So I think we should just bring a rook into the center, just like this. Although there is also bringing this rook you could consider. I don't think it matters a whole lot, so let's just develop the a rook. Okay, so they're now putting more pressure on our d5 pawn. Moves to consider here. I guess we can play bishop to f5. That move makes some sense because their knights are quite good. We need to bring some extra defense to this pawn. I think, yeah, let's play bishop to f5 fairly quickly. Our light square bishop's actually not very good. Their dark square bishop's their bad piece. So I think what we should probably do is, yeah, try to trade off this bishop. However, they have just allowed us to capture a free pawn, so don't mind if I do. If we take and then go here, they can play b5. We go takes, but then we have knight c6 in between move, takes, discovered attack on the queen. And the queen has to maintain the defense of the bishop, so queen goes here. We can play something like knight into d5, and after knight takes on d5 takes, queen takes on c6. Have we got anything going on there? Maybe not. Maybe not so clear there. At the same time, we are winning a pawn by force. I'm getting very low on time. I don't really know where all the time has gone, but this transition does make a lot of sense. We will still have this bishop on f5 as well, so there might be some extra ways. Aha, there's rook d7 in the line. There's rook d7 in the line that I missed. When the queen is on c7, we can play rook d7 with a fork, and that would win the game. So knight takes pawn in the center. Okay, they didn't go for the b4 line, so it didn't even matter anyway. But yeah, knight c6 I think looks strong here, trying to worm our knight into the position. And we'll have this well-supported, well, not well-supported, but we'll have this passed pawn on c6, which can be well-supported with the queen and also with the bishop like this. So yeah, let's get the queen in there like this. They can't bring any rooks to attack the pawn because our bishop is covering all of that. So if we can play a move, I don't know, like knight d5, just something to try and exchange off the knight. Maybe knight goes into e4 and we can take with the bishop. I think that makes sense. So yeah, let's try and play this. And we now have this protected passed pawn on c6, which has been well secured. We just need to bring the other rook into the game. Try and exchange a couple things. I think keeping the queen and bishop makes a lot of sense. Also, we can try and reposition this bishop back to d7, seeing as we've traded off that knight, and then we can control a lot of really important squares that the rooks want to access, which will make it very hard for them to move around in this position. So yeah, they've allowed this bishop to return back to f5 and go into d7, and I think this is going to be really, really strong for white in the long run. So let's play bishop to d7. Oh wait, let's not play bishop d7 right yet. They are attacking my b pawn. So we could consider rook to d7 as well. Just trying to really get that pawn down the position. But I think we should just play c3 first. Make sure that this is all solid and secure. Take with the rook. And if they play this one, maybe rook d7 can be considered now. Because on rook to d7 after this exchange here, we're now threatening back rank mates and stuff like that. The queen's going to come in and it's just going to support the pawn going for the mate. And if it doesn't, then we'll be able to make some serious threats on f7. So yeah, we can deliver the check here. The pawn is promoting and the game is over because they have to block with the queen. And then we will capture it and deliver the mate. So let's promote to a rook here. Just for the flashing element, and yeah, that should be that. That should be GG. Okay, nice. So that is a win for us. I'll be back with you in a couple seconds with the game review. Okay, so we played that one at an 89 accuracy. Looks like a fairly smooth game graph. It looked like it was equal, and then all of a sudden we were better, and then we were winning. Maybe a couple mistakes in the conversion. But let's take a look at the opening first. French defense, kind of, but then they allowed d5. D5 apparently not a good move, by the way. I really thought d5 was a good move. I was envisioning something like this, where we can just continue development, sack the pawn, and you know, black's got these double pawns which eventually should drop off the board. But knight c3 is better. Allows them to play d5. And I guess the point is we might transition into some kind of, this would become like some French. It wants to transition into some weird like Slav, just some Slav position. I don't really know. I don't really know that much about this. I've seen people play like this before, never thought it was very good. But yeah, I guess this d5 move isn't quite the way to punish it. And d6 was good, by the way, which is very strange to me. I don't see how we're defending after queen b6. You play knight to a3 only move. What? Exchange the queens, go down a pawn, and then play knight b5. King e7? You capture it. And then play f4. What on earth is this? Okay, the engine is spitting some craziness. Just developing the knights makes a lot of sense. Get the queen out. And yes, just keeps the bishop on the board. This is important. If you capture here, then black's doing a little bit better than they were before. In fact, black's slightly better according to the engine. Because we've exchanged off the pieces, which means that black's development job is much, much easier. So they lash out with b5. You get some more development in, bring the rook to the middle. Try and exchange our bishop for their knight here. And they end up blundering the pawn just like this. They drop the pawn. We play knight c6, maintaining the pawn. We get captures. I defend the pawn, exchange the knight, put the bishop on a good square on d7. Apparently this trade won immediately. Bishop takes, nice tactics. Yeah, okay. So there was some tactic here, which meant that the exchange was good. But all things being equal, this looked like an excellent endgame for white as well. Very promising, given that we have infiltrations. I guess, yeah, they should have played bishop to f6 to add extra protection to this square. And after here, we could have just taken this pawn. And white should be winning this again. So not too much for black to do, really. They ended up playing queen d6, which is an immediate blunder due to this check, and then promotion. In this case, a rook could have been a queen, doesn't really matter. All roads lead to mate, and another nice win out of our e4, d4 repertoire. So if you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, found it interesting, please consider liking and subscribing. I am offering chess coaching at the moment, so also check that out if you're interested. Link will be in the description. Just send me an email. And other than all of that, I will see you in the next video. Bye.